Okay, hi. Welcome to another edition of Political Science Fun Time with me, your Professor Selby. This is a sequence of videos I'm doing. I'm doing it for all of my classes because ballots are just came out this week for the California propositions, and I thought it would be a fun activity to go through them as a class, and you could think about how you're going to vote and stuff like that. I don't care how you vote, okay? This is a voter informational thing. I will tell you how I'm voting. Some students want to know, some don't. I don't care, okay? And maybe you don't like me, you think I'm a stupid idiot, so you vote the other way, right? I took this is a funny story. I actually took American government when I was in community college, and it was one of the worst classes I had ever taken in my life. And I didn't get into political science until I was basically a senior in college, and then I took a political theory course, and then it made a lot more sense to me, and it was things that I was more interested in, and the professors were a lot better. So like my experience in my first like American government class was like easily one of the worst classes I ever took at the university. So first, this video is just going to be on how the direct democracy system works in California. Okay, so it's going to be a quick one, two, three. How does it work, and what are some of the sort of problems that people commonly suggest with direct democracy? Later, I will do this. I'll split it up for us. So just a little bit of history for us first. Um, Progressive Republicans, people like Teddy Roosevelt, uh, were relatively speaking fans of direct democracy in California. We got direct democracy thanks to Hiram Johnson. In Sacramento, there's a Hiram Johnson High School, which is actually quite close to where I live. It started in 1911. California uses our direct democracy system more than any other state in the nation. Every single important decision now goes through the direct democracy system. I personally have some issues with this, but once you're in it, it's hard to get out of it, is one of the problems. And scholars often refer to direct democracy as the fourth branch of California's government, because of how frequently it's used. And because of the way it works, it actually ends up being the most important branch. Okay. For those classes that are going to have a more extended unit on California politics, you will see me talk about I mean, you're going to get, this is just barely setting you up. For those classes that, okay, this is what you're going to get. Here's how direct democracy works. It'll be a little bit different. Okay. You're not going to get we won't be returning to this later, but for some of my classes, we will. Um, there's three kinds of initiatives we could say. Oh, where'd my face go? There's three kinds of initiatives. Okay. There are, where can I put my face? There we go. There are direct initiatives. This is what most people think of when they think of the direct democracy system. Direct initiatives are where those guys have the petitions at the grocery store or other places, and they rush up to you and prevent your entrance from getting into the grocery store, and they say sign the petition. Well, if enough people sign that petition, it's given a number and it goes on the ballot. Okay. There's an indirect initiative, which basically the California legislature can just put something on the ballot itself. So we'll see this with some of the propositions that we look at. The California legislature says, okay, we want the people of California to weigh in on this, so they don't have to gather signatures. They just take it to the people and see if the people want to do it. And then lastly, there's a referendum process. A referendum process is very similar to the direct initiative. You have to gather signatures and do all of that. But rather than a new law, the question is, do we keep a law that's already been voted on? Okay, so keep that in mind. So how do you get on the ballot? For most of them, you have to do, so I'm just going to move my face around. So, don't watch it too fast. You might, get dizzy. For direct initiatives and referendums, you need to gather signatures. Okay, so you need to gather somewhere between 500,000 and 800,000 valid signatures, which means you really need close to double that, because a lot of people have they've moved, they're not registered to vote, their address doesn't match, their signature doesn't match, there's some kind of problem. So you get a lot of invalid signatures. And it costs at least $1 to $3 million to put something on the ballot. So it's called the Citizens Initiative, but maybe it should be called the Businessmen's Initiative or the Special Interest Initiative. I don't know, what you would prefer to put here, because unions, business, wealthy individuals, like they're able to qualify things kind of as they like. They've got a lot of money, they can get them qualified, whereas regular people really don't have that opportunity. I mean, I do not have $3 million underneath my mattress, and if I did, I would certainly not spend it on this. Right? Now, there are some commonly suggested issues with direct democracy. There's actually more than this, but for our purposes here, these three are really going to sort of help frame our discussion in a helpful way. First, there's a problem of what we call rational ignorance. Okay, when the cost of acquiring new information outweighs the benefits, voters do not acquire it, and they are therefore rationally ignorant, right? So average voters spend about 3 minutes per proposition. That's not very long. My goal is to make you spend a little bit longer, but some of them really do need a lot more research. And as you will see, I've actually put research into some of these, which took me a heck of a lot more than 3 minutes. But some of them I'm just like, ugh, voting rights for 17-year-olds, like, who will turn 18 before the next election. Sure, I guess we can vote on that. I don't really care. I don't need to research that. Like, just vote yay or nay. Who cares? But this presents a big problem for making smart policy for California, because voters aren't really thinking through the nuanced details of what's going to happen at the ballot box. It's more of a quick judgment. I like it, I don't like it, and then it passes or doesn't pass. And we don't think about the long-term consequences so much. There's a second problem that is a pretty serious problem. It's a very majoritarian system. Okay, now majority rules is part of democracy, but one of the reasons our founding fathers liked the whole idea of checks and balances was because if you have different people who all need to have input on a decision, it's much more likely to be in the interest of everybody. Okay. So like my wife and I, like for big purchases, we each have veto power, right? So if I say I want to get this, she's like, I veto. It's like, okay, well, she didn't like it. I'm half the game, but we need to have, 100% people behind this big decision. And then, vice versa. I want to go on vacation here. I'm like, I don't think we have the money for that. I think I'm going to want to veto that one, that type of thing. But those decisions are going to be much more in the common interest at that point, right? If we were each allowed just to go make big purchases, then that's more of the bare majoritarian idea. I come home with new golf clubs. I don't play golf, but this is like a classic problem. It's like I dropped $5,000 on new golf clubs, and it's like, well, I was saving for a couch, and like you should be pissed if your partner goes and drops $5,000 and doesn't ask you about it, unless you're like Bill Gates and you have billions of dollars, and then it doesn't matter. So, our initiative history, systems history, is full of majority votes on minority rights. I mean, almost by definition, it's like every time, because someone's going to be affected, and that person is very rarely going to be like a majority of people, right? So that's a real both policy and actually ethical concern. Things like Proposition 8, which took away marriage equality in California. Well, why are 100% of the California population voting on something that really only affects 10% of it, right? That's a tough one. Third, and this one I kind of alluded to already when I was talking about rational ignorance, it's incredibly difficult to change your mind once you vote something yes. Okay, so once it's in, it gets locked in, and it's really, 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 really hard to change. Okay. So, almost every single proposition that's ever been passed in California is an example of the lock-in effect. Some of them are locked in harder than others. Statutory laws are a little bit harder. Constitutional amendments are a bit harder to change than statutory amendments or statutory laws. But, the rule, whatever change we make, gets locked in, and then you can't change it, and it makes it so difficult. Okay. Oh, okay. So now what I want to do, I want to show us our Canvas page and just hit a couple of quick things on the Canvas page, right? So um, one thing to keep in mind here is this important distinction between representative democracy, which is when we vote for politicians and then they vote on laws, and direct democracy, which is people voting yes or no on a law directly, right? So representative democracy, you vote for a guy, he goes sits in Congress and he talks and discusses and debates, and then he passes a law. Um, few different stages. Look at this here. I mean, this is what I was referring to as far as rational ignorance. This is from 2 years ago, but there was 17 different laws that we were voting on that year. This year it's 12. I mean, it's so frustrating as a professor of political science who wants to do the research. I don't even have time to do all this research. So I'm rationally ignorant. I mean, I'm obviously going just I have so much just knowledge because I've been doing this for a long time. I can make good educated guesses on most of these things, but that's an educated guess. And then what do I have to do? I actually have to go to the research. They're like, well, this is my educated guess. Let's go see if there's like some evidence for that or not. There are some good things about direct democracy. Go around the stinking politicians. So I don't want to, I want to be clear about that. Don't worry about the rest of this. And for those of you who are interested, you can look over this page. Here are some commonly suggested changes to how direct democracy works. Okay. So, you can look through them. If you're in one of my classes, which is going to do a longer unit on California politics, this set of policy alternatives is really, I want you to try to keep this like a little more present in your mind. Okay, looking